Welcome to the Golden Com podcast. Today I have special guest, Carrie Freitas.
You did it. You did it. You were in your head, but you did it right.
How do you pronounce your name exactly?
Just like you did.
I did it right.
Yep. I have nothing to change, nothing to correct.
Okay. Well, I've known you for a long time.
You have. Mm-hmm. Whether you've liked that or not, you have known me for quite a bit.
Well, this is what I know when I run into you, which is often.
Okay.
Right? I'm like, damn, I wish I had more time with her.
You do. Most people say that.
I do.
Yeah.
So now
I'm fun.
Oh, I've got you.
Yeah, I know.
I got you for 30 minutes.
You do. I'm right here.
Well, for us to get to know you better, and I want to talk about PR. So
yes.
PR is the
topic.
It's going to be in the title. We'll name it after we're done. But before we get there, I always like to learn more about you.
That's the fun part.
I like the Freudian formative years.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Where did you grow up?
Like I've done a lot of therapy. I don't know which track we're going down here. I grew up in Newport Beach.
Yeah.
I went to Corona Del Mar High School. Yeah, where I was the yearbook editor, and in a bunch of clubs, I was like queen of the nerds, which I was like really proud about because I think it's like I like being smart. So I had kind of a fun run there at CDM.
You did yearbook.
Yeah, you're judging? What's
that? No, it's like the best.
You're seeing like a...
Well, it's the best book of high school life. I mean, at the end.
It's the book. But, my yearbook was unpopular because I went in a different direction.
I want to hear.
Yeah, so I decided that Banana Republic was a new brand, okay? Actually, it was a new-ish brand. And I've been thinking lately, like, why the heck did they name it Banana Republic? It's such a negative connotation, but that's for a different podcast. If you look up what Banana Republic's about, not the brand, but what it means, it's not great.
No, it's okay. A history, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, I saw the catalog for Banana Republic, and I'm like, this is bomb, and I think our whole yearbook should look like this, right? And it's a jungle out there, it's an adventure, it's senior year, people are on their different adventures. And to that point, it had always been like really blue and gold and, Sea Kings.
Sea Kings.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, so it hit really when it kind of came out, when the street date, hit, no one liked it. And I liked it, but everyone was like, what did you do to our yearbook?
You went rogue.
I did. That's kind of a theme. But yeah, I went rogue.
Were you unsupervised in this whole thing?
No, I think the yearbook advisor thought it was awesome and different and unique, but like kids in high school aren't usually about what's awesome and different and unique. It's more like, why don't you fit in, why don't you do blue and gold, like stay in your lane, maybe play around with some 80s themes.
It's because you have talent,
I think. I don't know. So
you go from blue and gold to baby blue.
And yellow or whatever the colors are. UCLA. I'm not going to get into the whole USC UCLA thing here because that's dangerous waters here, but UCLA is a great school, and I had a great time there. I was a comm major and communication studies, and I did a lot of internships, which were really the value of my education. UCLA was a great liberal arts education, nothing super practical, was learned except for like how to balance a budget and how to binge drink, and maybe things like that were, didn't have staying power for me. But I did a lot of internships in broadcast news, and that's where I wanted to go after I graduated.
So I know you as this great presence and a terrific PR consultant, and you just have such a presence, and you have such a finger on the pulse, particularly in this neighborhood. I don't know how well it is nationally that you focus, but I know what you do here.
Very strong locally.
Is it local? Okay.
Yeah. I started my career national at big agencies, but now my focus is completely local and regional.
Okay. So I've always seen you as the leader of the pack, and I was always wondering what the technical underpinnings that got you. Was it writing? Was it broadcasting? Where'd you get the bug?
It's interesting. So I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. I had an agent, I had a voice coach, I had a tape. And then my friends that were about a year ahead of me in that sector were getting jobs in Missoula, Montana for 11G. And they were their own like editors and reporters. And it was like it was kind of like the one-man band, right? And I was like, no, like I don't want to go to Missoula. No offense to Missoula, by the way. I just don't want any Missoulans out there. I respect Missoula. But I was like, that's not for me. I want to stay in California. And my agent's like, that's not how it works. And I'm like, then I don't want to do this. So then I decided, how can I parlay these skills? I was trained in journalism. They're like, why don't you just flip the script and be on the other side of the desk which some people call the dark side of, journalism, PR, and just use them in PR. So I said, oh, that sounds great. Didn't really know a lot about what PR was. Figured it out pretty quick. Got a job in San Francisco after I graduated. And, a PR star was not born, but raised.
All right.
Over time.
Right. And and then PR, now you're shoot 'em up, bang 'em up, right?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how does a young person in PR start making inroads? Like what are some early successes?
I mean, probably the things that you tell your kids, your mentees, it's like just a bunch of hard work. It still is. It's a grind no matter how you slice it. There's no fast track. I think for me, I just was a really good at grinding. And that sounds bad, but you know what I'm saying. I worked really hard. And I was really curious. I'm like a lifelong learner. So I'm always wanting to learn stuff. And I always asked for the next assignment. Just like, again, I would tell any of my mentees the same thing. It's just like, keep asking for new assignments, challenge yourself, and be the one to have their hand raised all the time for, whatever it is, the project, the gig. And so I worked at big agencies and worked on really cool stuff like launching Pokemon to the US, which was amazing. I mean, when you're on the phone with like the games writer at the New York Times and trying to explain like an electric mouse, and it's going to be like a huge thing, they're like, really? Okay. So it was kind of like it's interesting. So I've gotten to work on some great pieces of business, and I cut my teeth on big budgets, which was great because I got to do a lot of different stuff. There was the money.
So does Pokemon have a big budget?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Nintendo had a huge budget.
So is that Japan? Is that what that is? Pokemon?
Pokemon.
I know where that is, but
it came from Japan.
Okay, so
it was big in Japan.
Right.
And then it was
huge in Japan.
Then it became huge here.
Because you're working for an agency in San Francisco.
Yes.
And that agency has the Pokemon.
Well, that was an LA agency, but basically the same thing. So I'm working at a big agency that has big pieces of business, and you get to work on really cool stuff.
Okay, and your job now is to start calling New York Times, Today Show. Is that what you're doing?
Correct.
And you're saying, hey, I've got something that you want to cover.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you get through?
Well, it's a matter of, just like for you, I mean, I don't think at your stage in your career with Golden.com, you're doing a lot of cold calling, right? So it's like by reputation, right? People know people. I had just really developed a really great network of media, which was my stock and trade. It's any PR person's stock and trade. Just by giving them good stories up till then. So I'd worked on other accounts, Microsoft, things like Pizza Hut, Ford, I mean, big brands. So I already had a calling card basically with these producers or writers. And they knew me because I packaged up really good story ideas and never gave them half-baked stuff. Still, that's how I do well today. Same thing. Thinking like a journalist, coming up with what the story is, and then pitching them, right?
So you're doing their work for them.
I mean, to a certain extent, right. Like I would never want to do with their work. Our journalists, especially locally, and we know a lot of the same people that are just really strong journalists whom we love and hold in reverence because they're a big part of our democracy, as we know. It's really important. I would never want to do their job, but you are showing them what the story can be. Like, why would you make more work for a journalist to figure out what the storyline is? Like, I want to say, hey, this is what I think the storyline is. Like, and these are the pieces, and I can offer you this interview, that, just to make their job easier because they're just as inundated as anyone else in this world with digital stuff nowadays or any other kind of story ideas. So you try to give them the vision quickly, and then they have to do the hard work of writing the story, but you help them.
Let me rephrase that. I didn't want to say that you're doing their work for them.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're anticipating some ideas for them that they can further and
develop.
That helps your reputation.
Totally.
Like when Carrie brings me something,
it's always good.
I know it's going to be good.
Right.
Right. So that's the reputation you develop.
Yes.
As a PR professional.
Correct. And that's gold because once the journalists know that you think like them and you always give them a good story and handle all the logistics that they need handled, you're in.
Gosh, you know what I love about that profession is the initiative that you have to take.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Because no one, like, how do you kick yourself in the butt how do you coach yourself to have that initiative?
It's so interesting. I don't. So it's a hard question. You know how like there are things that you do in your life, Jason, that you just know how to do. It'd be hard for you to parse it and teach somebody how to do it. I think for me, I've always been very driven. I had a dad that was like one of those Mad Men characters. He worked on Madison Avenue. He was completely self-made, like pulled up from his like blue collar bootstraps in the Bronx, went to Syracuse, became like a high flyer on Madison Avenue in the ad world. And he just always had chutzpah and a work ethic. And I was raised mostly by him, just as a single dad and me. And so I mean, that's what I learned at his knee. I was like, oh, you're going to just do it. Like, you're going to go for it. You're going to seize every opportunity. And that was just kind of in my blood. Yeah, I'm still that way. I'm really ambitious.
A lot of people who sit here with me, they just have a very similar story, which is they can't quite put their thumb on it. I'm trying to put my thumb on it because I'm trying to craft these, similarities with these people that I know that are achieved high levels in their profession. But you don't have a lot of fear of failure. I mean,
that's true, actually.
Right? Because you get a lot of no's.
You do. And I think I grew up with like a healthy fear. My mom passed away when I was really little. So I was always felt very mortal, even at a young age. So I'd be scared to roller skate in case I got a head injury. So yeah. So that's where my fear was kind of focused, like skating, things where I don't have traction, skiing, But when it came to entrepreneurial enterprise, I think just learning from my dad, I had no fear there. So it's like compartmentalized fear that doesn't leak over into the work zone.
Okay, so flash forward. I meet you when I'm working for a local mentor of mine, Steve Churm.
Everyone knows Steve.
Steve is doing the local free magazines. When that was a time where you go to any hair salon or car wash or whatever.
Always see OC Metro, OC Family. Yeah, great magazines, by the way. I miss them.
OC Menus, Southland Golf.
Oh, yeah.
There's probably 6 or 7 of them.
Yes.
Yeah. And my dream was to be an OC Metro when I was starting out.
Yeah, like 40 under 40 or
just an ad. I just want to be in there.
Oh, okay.
And so Steve and I ended up creating a relationship when we were taking all of his magazines and making them digital properties.
Got it.
This was during...
Yeah, because you all were really early. Golden Com was like the first game, and now still is the strongest game in town when it comes to the digital side of things.
We were doing that.
You were early there, which
we
was
were
awesome.
early, particularly when it came to a complex CMS, which was just
totally.
pre-WordPress, all that, right? And then I met you because you were working at
360 Commercial Partners, a commercial real estate brokerage.
That's right.
Yes.
And I left that meeting and I go, wow, that was cool, because you were telling me all the things that we needed to do to help.
Sounds like me.
Well, I needed it.
Wow.
I'm like, wow, I got to come back for more of that.
Sounds like you talk to my husband and my kids, right? I tell you everything you need to do. Yeah, I'm good at that still.
Yeah, and we had a good relationship there because we were both working and they were clients.
Yes.
But you've had this kitchen table PR.
Yes.
Almost 30 years, Carrie.
Yeah, it's interesting, but yes and yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So worked, I lasted only a little, maybe 5 years in big agency world because I couldn't get promoted fast enough. I was really greedy and wanted more titles and more money. And at some point they told me, you're too young to go to the next level. You need to just chill out. So then I'm like, well, then I need to go work for myself. So I started a consultancy when I was 26. And then, it became kitchen table marketing and PR in 2010 when I finally kind of put my big girl pants on and got an S Corp designation. But I've been doing this work for 30 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and now I follow you on LinkedIn. Honestly, are there 2 of you? I mean, 3 of you. Honestly, I'm so impressed with your work ethic.
That's a scary question.
Well, you're always at these events, and you're always getting good juju for your clients. And as I get older, I am really, I'm a little slow and sometimes late to the game. But when I get it, I usually get it pretty good because it just took me so long to get it. I am really infatuated with PR and the work you're doing. I think it's more important than ever because there's so much noise out there. How do you authenticate yourself?
That's a really good question. I mean, so there's if you bifurcate that, there's how do I authenticate myself in my practice? And then there's how do I authenticate my clients' brands, let's say, for lack of a better word, right? So I think for me, it's interesting that you said authenticate because I am just really known as being really authentic and a straight shooter. And so I think just like with the media, when I don't come to them with anything half-baked as far as a pitch, it's the same thing with a client. If there's not a values alignment as far as what they're doing, and we have about 70% of our clients right now on our roster are nonprofit, but I also welcome for-profit clients. So to me, it's if they're not buying or if they're not selling, distributing, or having impact that I feel a values alignment with, whether it's a for-profit or a nonprofit operation, it won't work for me to represent them. I have to really believe in it. And it's not just lip service, it's true. And I think also, I think I authentically represent what we can and can't do. So if we're not well suited as a partner for a certain client, I will so readily give them to what people would say is a competitor in the space. But I don't see it like that, because I feel like there's an abundance mindset in the world in which I live, where it's like there's plenty for everybody. So I think I'm very authentic in being honest with clients about what's realistic, what's not. If there's a values alignment, we can work together. And if there's not, I get them to a really great, purveyor of whatever service they need, marketing, advertising, content development, that's a better fit for them. And I think authenticating my client, it's really all about making sure that they're authentic too. Like, are they really adhering to their mission? Are they really delivering what they say they are going to deliver, as far as whether it's impact, like for foster youth, whether it's the best shopping experience for home design at SoCo? If they're not delivering that, then I'm not comfortable like really getting the word out until I know that they're actually delivering on their promise. And when they are, I feel like I can shout that from the rooftops. And that's when we do that. And we do it, strategically, where we come up with like the key messages. It's not super scientific, but it's a matter of like, what's the brand promise? What are the key messages? Making sure everything ties back to that, whether it's a journalistic, an article that you're working on with a reporter, or whether it's a piece of a direct mail. So it's consistency, it's relating the vision. I mean, it's a lot. But it comes together in this like great kind of alchemy when you are feeling like you are in flow and in your lane, and you're working with aligned people and aligned businesses. It's great.
I love it, because great companies and great leaders, I think one thing they all have in common is they get their staff to buy into their philosophy. Like they get everyone to buy in. So that means their philosophy is clear. They live it. The company is living it, and everyone is in their flow.
Yes.
And then what I heard is, if they were to entertain hiring you actually become one of them.
Yes, we're embedded.
Right?
I mean, really.
You're literally. And if you're not feeling it, you are at a stage in your career where you basically say, I'm not feeling it, or
right.
something.
And that doesn't serve anybody. If I stay there, I'm not feeling it, my team's not feeling it. Right. I mean, everyone's got to be, like you said, in a state of flow and buy-in. Yeah.
And I bet people would hire you to help them massage their message, because sometimes everyone in the company is bought in on it. But if that isn't something that someone outside the company can understand, it's not as useful.
It's not.
It's not as useful.
Right. I think, and the message, as you know, in your work too, this all kind of has this dovetails, right, with a lot of what you do, is that, that comes from branding in a lot of cases. And branding's not just for a commercial enterprise, it's also for nonprofits. We have done a couple of nonprofit rebrands. We're in the middle of another. And that's where, like you said, you've got to have the key messages down, and you can't just put it out there that in a way that's not artful. Like, I can't say, this is Carrie Public Relations, and she talks to journalists for you. It's not really a compelling, call to action or USP, unique selling proposition. So it's a matter of like finding the words that resonate, and a lot of that stuff can happen through focus groups or just ideation. And when you've been in the business as long as you and I have, a lot of it's just in your head in a good way. And then it's like, how does it look and feel? Like, does the look and feel of the logo carry that through? Does the tenor of what we're putting on social media or putting out there in direct mail or on the website or in stories, does that fit? Does that align? So it's really, I guess it's a lot about alignment. Once you get the messaging down, everything else has to be in lockstep with that.
And with PR today, as I see it, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the reason why a long time ago I didn't see PR like I see it today is it was either a hit or you didn't. And it was very hard to measure. And I know there's some truth to that.
There is. It's still true.
Well, but today there is also all this offshoot of your own social.
Right.
Right? Where you do have dividends from the work, even if you don't hit.
Correct.
And that wasn't the case 10 years ago.
Yeah,
because there's no place to put it. You
No.
can put it in your walls. I mean,
Yeah,
But
totally.
now you can put it all over.
Yeah.
Now, how does it feel? And you probably don't play golf.
I do. Well, actually, so I'm learning to play.
Okay.
I like the driving range.
Yes.
And I know it's drive for show, putt for dough. So I'm not currently putting for much dough because I don't like putting. I know the short game is really important. But I'd rather just be at the driving range. But I'm learning. So I'm like really, but tell me, so I might understand a golf analogy.
Have you ever like just hit the sweet spot?
Yeah, no, it feels so good.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's my question.
Yeah.
So is in the morning you wake up and your client is in the paper with a full spread and they covered almost directly at what you would just dream that they would cover for this company that you've bought in. Is that the sweet spot? I mean,
it should be. Yeah. And I'll tell you something, it's so interesting because of the ambition that we talked about earlier, I'm never really satisfied. And I know we're not going to get super Freudian or Jungian here. But I feel like I'm always like, okay, what's next now? So my therapist would tell me to slow down, take it in, appreciate
just
it.
Enjoy it, Carrie.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Thanks. Oh, listen, I'm going to just cancel my therapist now. Thanks, Jason. That resonated. But it's true. So I feel like, yes, it's a sweet spot. It feels really good. And we repurpose it and remerchandise it and all the ways you talked about in the e-newsletter and the website, right? And socials. But I don't know. I don't let a lot of grass grow under my feet. It's on to the next thing. But it does feel rewarding.
What spawned my call to you was you had a post in your LinkedIn like about truism, which is you just don't know.
Right.
And I love saying I don't know. I think it's it's
powerful
3 words that a person can say. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can we make a pledge that we need to hear more of that?
I think so too. I think people are afraid to not know everything. And I think there is a power in saying that you don't know and that you're curious and you want to align with other people and partner with people to figure it out.
Right.
Yeah. Like with PR, like the post you're talking about, where I was giving kudos to a really, one of our great local journalists, Matt Szabo of the LA Times Daily Pilot, and just like what a pleasure it was to work with him on this story, right, and everything aligned. But the post was really about how little control, this could be blown up into a macro about like our lives, right, but in PR, how little control you ultimately have over what happens, because you could have a really tight like TV segment planned for next Monday morning. And then some really huge breaking news happens and you get cut, right? And that's through no fault of your preparation or how strong the story was, but there's a fire, in Monrovia and it's a 4-alarm and everyone's out there and you don't get to have your client in studio. So it's like all that work and then, it doesn't happen and it might not be rescheduled or in the newspaper, like the story may not hit the sweet spot. Maybe it doesn't hit everything, and maybe something is kind of maybe not misrepresented intentionally, but it just doesn't quite ring true. And you have to kind of take your lumps. So I think a lot of type A people end up in what I do, but it seems a little bit antithetical because we have little to no control at the end of the day over what runs. It does help to have good relationships with media who respect you and, you give them a good story, but at the end of the day, it could get cut, it could be represented differently. So you have to come to terms with that pretty early on.
Well, that's the post that caught my eye. Like I said, I've known you for years, but I just loved, there was some humility to that post and this truth to that post.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff you can't control, right, in business.
Yeah, but then you can still make something out of it, though.
Totally.
Because the process is yielding these results, and you just, like you said,
and you learn,
just keep at
right?
it. Yeah,
and you learn. So maybe the pitch that didn't land because there was flooding, from a storm, ends up, you've already done the work, so maybe it can happen later, or you can change it into something else, like some other kind of content. But yeah, thanks for noticing that post. I felt like really in flow when I wrote it because it was true.
You're in flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be remiss not to ask you about AI.
Okay, yeah.
So things are changing. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to use AI.
Yeah.
Our team is using AI. Are you using it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We do it. I find like it's really great as like a idea generator. So let's just say, like, hey, we're doing a social campaign for like American Heart Month, and our client is Johnson & Johnson MedTech, and we want like a selection of like, posts that, pull in this product, here are the details of the product, and here's like what the National Awareness Month is, and here are some of the key messages, and develop some posts for us. And then we'll see, it's amazing, it's magic, as you know. And what happens is it's just like a good idea generation. Like I think probably 50% of it gets thrown out because it just doesn't parse. But the rest of it you can zhuzh and maybe use like 30% of that, right? Which is a great time savings. Or if you're like, what are some unique names for like a gala coming up for a nonprofit? Here are all the things we want to communicate. It'll spit out, 20 names in a second. And you're like, wow, 5 of those we could actually build on and kind of morph to make it something meaningful that's actually. So I feel like it's a great idea generator. We're not using it for full-scale writing projects just because and I'm probably just a writing snob, I still feel like there's an art to that. I think other people are using it to generate a lot of writing. I worry sometimes about my journalist colleagues that people will think that that's going to replace some kind of journalistic enterprise, because I don't think that will ever be the case. But I'm also very biased. But I think that we're using it for idea generation, some time savings, but ultimately it still needs work. It's like you've got to still zhuzh it and work with what the output is to make it actually work at least for our clients.
Yeah, I think that's the case with any technology.
Yeah, but I love it.
Just a plug. You said magic. So we use Cast Magic. So I'll just give them a plug.
Yeah.
So we're going to take this podcast when we're finished. Okay. We take the entire thing, we shove it into this awesome program called Cast Magic. It does the transcripts for us.
Awesome.
And then it saves us some time. But then it gives us blog ideas, white paper ideas, and it just starts cranking out.
So amazing. What's it called?
Cast Magic.
Okay, great. That's good to know.
And most of it's pretty good.
That's
I mean,
so
none
incredible.
of it can go unedited. None of it can go unwatched. But boy, oh boy, did this give me a head start.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of less lift for you, right? You just got to kind of work with it. I love it.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, I'm super into it. I'm not like threatened by it. I think it's a great adjunct, and like you said, it's kind of a time saver and helpful. So that's all good, all to the good.
Okay. Well, last question, which is a doozy. Yeah. How do people work with you? Like, how do we find you? KitchenTablePR.com.
Oh yeah, our new website just launched today.
Oh
yeah,
I want to check that out.
Great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really all you have to do is go to our website. Yeah, you said it, KitchenTablePR.com. We do marketing. We do full service marketing too, but I kept the PR in there because that's my first love. Like I like the storytelling and the publicity the most, but we do it all.
And you said nonprofits are a big sector, but they're not your only sector.
No, we do for-profits. We have shopping centers. We have restaurants. We have Johnson & Johnson MedTech in Irvine, which is a great client. So we love it all. And I think to work with us, it's really get in touch. And then if there's a fit, just say this. Like if you get in touch with me, I'm going to make sure you're taken care of. So even if we're not a fit, I will take you to the person that is the fit. And so that's what what you're getting when you reach out.
I can vouch. Carrie, it's so awesome to see you.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks for having me. This is so fun.
It's so fun. Do it again.
I love your podcast. I hope everyone's tuning in. It's so great. I love getting the different perspectives from all the people you talk to.
We have neat people in this town.
You do?
Yeah.
Really? It's pretty awesome.
I'll bump into you again.
Yeah.
Great job.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.